Day 3 of the march. The rain hasn't stopped. Carts sink deeper into the mud, wheels grinding. Shields hang heavy, cloaks soaked through. Sandals pull free with a wet, sucking sound. The forest ahead feels closer now, too close. Then it starts. Stones, spears, a rain of iron from the ridgeline. The Roman line folds in on itself. Orders vanish beneath the roar of panic and thunder. Through the haze, they see movement above the slope. Shapes in Roman armor, Roman shields, Roman voices shouting commands in Latin. And then it hits them. The attack isn't from barbarians. It's led by their own ally. The man they trusted is the one guiding the fire. It began long before the ambush, years earlier, in Rome itself. The man who would one day trap an army was once its model officer, Arminius, prince of the Cherusci, Roman citizen, knight of the equestrian class. He had been sent to Rome as a noble hostage, a political guarantee dressed as an honor, and Rome rewarded obedience with transformation. He learned Latin, rode beneath eagle standards, dined in marble halls, and commanded men older than him. To every Roman officer he was proof of the empire's genius, a barbarian polished into civilization. But beneath the discipline and salute was silence, and in that silence resentment grew. Arminius had come as a guest, but every toast to Rome's glory reminded him he was still a prisoner. He studied not to imitate, but to infiltrate. He learned their formations, their reliance on order, on perfect chains of command, on rules that never bent. And he saw what no Roman ever admitted aloud, that discipline, when stretched too far, becomes fragility. Governor Publius Quinctilius Varus never saw the danger. To him, loyalty was a uniform. Obedience was trust. They dined together often, in warm barracks scented with wine and wood smoke. Varus spoke of law and roads. Arminius nodded, every word a note in a song he was writing against them. When the governor praised him for pacifying the tribes, Arminius smiled. He'd seen their roads, their maps, their faith in routine. And he knew exactly where those roads would end. Publius Quinctilius Varus wasn't a fool. In Rome, his name carried weight, an administrator trusted by Emperor Augustus himself. He had governed Syria and Judea before, lands where rebellions were crushed not by armies, but by paperwork and decree. He believed law could civilize anyone. Now he ruled Germania, the wild frontier beyond the Rhine River, home to dozens of tribes, Cherusci, Bructeri, Chatti, people Rome called barbari, those who speak nonsense. But Varus didn't see chaos. He saw potential. Roads, taxation, courts, these would turn forest into province. To prove it, he relied on the man who seemed born to bridge those worlds, Arminius, the young prince who spoke flawless Latin, wore a Roman sword, and commanded a detachment of native auxiliaries loyal to the empire. So when word came of uprisings in the north, small villages refusing tax collectors, outposts burned, Varus barely hesitated. Arminius offered to lead them through the region and bring the offenders to justice. But one man tried to stop him. Segestes, another Cheruscan noble, and Arminius's own father-in-law, came to Varus's camp and begged him to listen. Arminius, he said, was plotting treason. He's gathering the tribes under Rome's nose. Varus waved him off. He'd seen tribal squabbles before. Germans were always quarreling. This sounded like jealousy between kin, not conspiracy. That moment, one man's warning dismissed, was the last chance to change history. Varus prepared his forces, 3 imperial legions, 17, 18, and 19, around 20,000 men, veterans of campaigns in the east. With them marched thousands of camp followers, merchants, blacksmiths, wives and children trailing the baggage train. Two routes lay ahead, one safe, one fast. Arminius recommended the faster, through dense, unfamiliar forest. "It will show the tribes we fear nothing," he told the governor. Varus agreed. As the column turned into the hills, rain began to fall. Fine at first, then constant. Wheels sank, boots slid. But discipline held. Roman order always did. Only now the order itself was the trap. And the man guiding them through the storm was already gone. No battlefield looked less like Rome's world than the one Arminius chose. Kalkriese Hill, northwestern Germania, near the modern Osnabrück plain. On one side, a ridge thick with trees. On the other, a marsh stretching into mist. Between them ran a single narrow path of red clay, the only road forward. The legion column stretched 7, maybe 8 miles long. Once inside, they couldn't maneuver. No space for cohorts to wheel, no visibility for standards. Sound vanished in the canopy. Rain thickened until armor turned black. Mud clung to sandals and wheels. Shields felt heavier with every mile. The horns meant to signal formation echoed back, warped and useless. Arminius rode ahead to rally allies. His absence raised no alarm. He was trusted after all. Meanwhile, along the ridges, thousands of warriors waited behind hidden embankments, ramparts woven from earth and tree trunks. Centuries later, archaeologists would dig them up, rough walls 2 meters high, perfect for throwing spears unseen. Then came the storm. Wind screamed through branches. Trees bent, snapping like bones. The legions trudged forward until the first volley struck. Stones, javelins, darts hurled from invisible hands. Soldiers raised shields, searching for an enemy they couldn't see. Every reply vanished into wet air. When night fell, they scraped out a camp on a low rise. Fires hissed in the rain. From the dark came whispers, footsteps, splashes, wood cracking. Then silence. By dawn, an entire auxiliary cohort was missing. Day 2 they marched again, because Rome didn't retreat. But the forest no longer looked like terrain. It felt alive. Arrows came in short bursts, then nothing. Men advanced, thinking the enemy gone, only to hit new barricades. The forest folded and unfolded like a maze. Every bend brought the same: mud, corpses, the red of standards half submerged. Varus clung to his maps, convinced open ground lay just ahead. But the maps were wrong. In the distance came a new sound. Not thunder this time. Drums. The trap was closing. 4 days followed, the slow unmaking of an empire. What began as a march became a collapse, a steady drowning in rain, fear, and mud. On the first morning, a horn sounded somewhere up the line, answered by a scream that vanished into mist. Spears fell from unseen ridges, brief flashes in the grey, and men dropped before they even raised their shields. Armor rang as soldiers tried to form ranks, but the ground itself resisted them. Every forward step sank deeper, slower than the breath behind it. At the rear, wagons tilted sideways, their wheels half buried, and animals thrashing in blind panic. Commands dissolved in the noise. Varus's officers shouted orders that carried barely 10 paces before the wind took them. The rain blurred sight and sound, until no one knew which direction the front faced. From the hills, another volley came, short bursts, then silence. It wasn't a battle in any Roman sense. It was suffocation. Each formation broke apart. Auxiliary scouts fled first, their trust shattered. Without them, the legionaries lost their eyes. Cohorts stumbled in circles, calling for centurions who were already gone. Wagons jammed on the narrow road, spilling grain and siege gear into the mud. Officers set fires to destroy what they couldn't carry, but the flames drowned before the smoke rose high enough to signal anyone. Then came the cavalry's desperate charge for escape. Hoping to break free through an open stretch, they spurred forward, but the forest closed around them. And in the limited space, they smashed straight into their own infantry. Spears tangled, horses overturned, and panic tore through the ranks faster than arrows ever could. What discipline remained collapsed in a single crushing moment. By the second day, the weather itself turned hostile. Rain hammered on helmets like drums, smothering all sense of direction. When troops found brief clearings, they tried to build shield walls, the posture of Roman certainty. But terrain betrayed them. From the slopes above rolled logs, stones, and javelins, hurled through fog. The walls splintered instantly. Orders became screams, and the screams faded into the noise of shattered metal. Witnesses later claimed Varus rode through breaks in the line, calling for calm. He offered the language of law to men wrenched beyond reason. He tried to lead them uphill toward open ground, unaware that Arminius had already sealed it. The same allies who once sat at Roman tables now filled the ridge, pressing down from three sides. By late afternoon, Varus saw the truth. His legions weren't retreating. They were ending. On the third day, exhaustion hollowed the survivors. They stripped armor to move faster, threw down the weapons that slowed them. Each dawn brought fresh assaults, thrusts from the shadows, brief, merciless, and gone. Wounded men were abandoned. Wagons became barricades that sank into the swamp. The forest erased formation, one breath at a time. Sometime during that day's fighting, Varus chose death over capture. Ancient sources agree he fell by his own hand, surrounded by what remained of his staff. Around him, officers tried to carry the eagle standards, the golden emblems of Roman soul and unity, into the woods. None came back. Nearly 20,000 soldiers died within those 4 days, their bodies lost to rain and soil. The aftermath was grim. Arminius ordered Varus's corpse mutilated, sending his severed head to another Germanic leader, Maroboduus, as proof of victory. Maroboduus refused the display and sent it on to Rome. Augustus, furious but bound by tradition, had it buried with honor. A ceremony meant not to celebrate Varus's failure, but to contain its shame. When word reached Rome, the sound of mourning spread faster than the official messengers. An entire army, 3 legions, their auxiliaries, and all support was gone. Their designations, 17, 18, 19, were erased from Roman rolls, never reassigned. The emperor, hearing the report, was said to cry out, "Quintilius Varus, legiones redder! Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." In that cry, the empire met its limits. What fell at Teutoburg was not just manpower or armor, but the illusion of permanence. One act of trust undone, one man's loyalty reversed, and Rome's northern frontier turned from symbol of progress into a warning. The betrayal had cost blood and belief alike. The forest had ended an army. Arminius's name would begin something else. Rome rebuilt its border behind the Rhine, but it never crossed that forest again. The empire had found the edge of itself, and the name of the man who placed it there. Arminius. To his people, a hero. To Rome, the traitor who turned its own lessons against it. In the years that followed, Emperor Tiberius sent his adopted son Germanicus, one of Rome's most gifted commanders, back into Germania. His mission? Avenge Teutoburg, recover the lost standards, and restore Roman honor. Germanicus burned villages, rebuilt forts, and finally reclaimed one eagle from the ruins. But victory felt hollow. The forests devoured every triumph. Tiberius recalled him, declaring the frontier closed. Germania would remain unconquered. And in that pause, Arminius became something stranger than a general. He became an idea. Tacitus, the Roman historian, wrote of him decades later, admiring his courage, condemning his deceit. He was both mirror and monster, Roman and rebel. But power never forgives power. The tribes that once followed him began to fear his fame. Within a few years, he was dead, murdered by his own relatives, accused of seeking kingship. The man who destroyed an empire's order was undone by his own. Centuries later, humanists rediscovered his name and renamed him Hermann, a symbol for German unity long before any such nation existed. His legend shifted with the times. Patriot, liberator, even nationalist idol. In the 19th century, the Hermannsdenkmal, the monument of Hermann, rose above Detmold's forest, a colossal bronze warrior, crushing Roman symbols underfoot. His sword pointed east, his face unbent. Yet under the weight of politics, the myth hardened. Arminius, or Hermann, became what every age needed him to be: freedom fighter, symbol, warning. But the truer story is simpler. He was neither Roman nor German. He was the space between, proof that loyalty can fracture, and identity can be forged as easily as broken. In the end, the forest kept everything: armor, bones, coins, and silence. And out of that silence, the legend walked on. When the storm passed, the forest fell silent again. The mud dried. Birds returned to the branches. And beneath their roots, Rome's lost legions slept. 3 entire armies erased not by might, but by trust. Varus believed in systems, in discipline, in the visible signs of loyalty: salutes, ranks, oaths, armor. Arminius believed in what could not be seen: the cracks between them. That's what betrayal really is. Not hatred, not chaos, but patience. It waits inside the rules, inside the certainty that you're too strong to fall. Rome didn't lose Teutoburg because of arrogance alone. It lost because its leaders mistook obedience for strength and doubt for weakness. They forgot that the hand you trust most is always the one closest to your throat. That lesson didn't die in that forest. It still lives anywhere power builds walls and calls them safety. Every empire faces the same danger, not the enemy at its gates, but the ally inside them. When certainty blinds you, betrayal doesn't need to strike hard. It only needs to wait for the moment when no one's watching. Because in the end, every empire falls the same way. Not from without, but from within. If you felt the weight of this story, if you want more tales of empires, deception, and the fragile line between order and ruin, subscribe and step back into history's quietest moments, where the loudest lessons still echo.